you feel that?
Monsters. Monsters roaming here, and quite a few.
Inside the temple? How? What happened to this place, Agnes?
The crystal of wind was swallowed up in darkness.
Darkness.
Yes, at the chasm in Kaldisla. It opened at the same time the crystal lost its light. And the dark that consumed it continues to breed more darkness still. I expect that font of shadows is to blame for drawing these creatures here.
Not good.
Yet we've no choice. Keep vigilant as we proceed. A moment's distraction could prove fatal.
What's all this on the floor?
The crystallist scriptures.
Oh, what sort of things do they say?
Dauntless seeker, offer your prayers unto the crystals. So too shall the Vestal, in accordance with the teachings. Their resplendent light shall cleave a path through darkest night and banish fear from every shadow. The scriptures have been passed down through more than 2 millennia, since the founding of the Orthodoxy. The excerpt I gave is among their most important passages.
I've heard it! From one of the old shepherds, when I was young.
It's that famous then? I've never read them, nor heard them quoted.
It looks as if someone tried to carry them away from here.
The acolytes. They were women of exceptional faith. I expect they came here desperate to protect these writings.
This stain upon the floor. I'm afraid it's blood.
This is terrible.
It's like a storm swept through in the middle of supper. What are these scraps of cloth?
Habits.
Huh? Oh, I'm so sorry.
They belong to the acolytes who lived here. They were tasked with looking after me. I owe them all so much.
Where have they gone?
Just awful. It's in complete chaos.
Yet swallowed up in silence. And in that stillness, grief. This place is steeped in sadness.
The women here made themselves a human shield that I might get away.
And now, all of them gone. It's Norende all over again.
Yet, I haven't the leisure to send them on or to mourn them. I'm not allowed even the luxury of grief. They sacrificed themselves that I might protect the crystal. I'll not betray them, I swear it. No matter what happens.
Surely, you can allow yourself to grieve.
I pray for them, that they may know peace. But for now, I must press onward. The crystal altar is just beyond. Follow me.
It's enormous!
Even hearing the stories, I'd never expected.
No! Its light is dimmer still than when I left. I've watched over the crystal all my life, but this... I've never seen this.
We need to release it from the darkness. Agnes, you know what to do, don't you?
The Mother Vestal, my predecessor, showed me as a child. A right to cleanse the crystal of any evil to befall it. I'm to sharpen my focus to a single point and align my breathing to the thrum of the crystal's natural rhythm. Every Vestal to come before me has poured her prayers into the crystal. The time has come to draw upon that store of will and awaken it.
You do your office proud. Now for the final step.
The Vestal garb.
Right. Without Without that to serve as a conduit, you won't be able to set the crystal to resonating.
The Mother Vestals was stored in the reliquary.
Lead the way. Once we have that, we can begin the rite of awakening.
That's the garb you need?
Yes, this is it. But the dark has beaten us here.
Oh, look at it. It's in tatters. And it must have been such a beautiful piece.
It may not serve its function in this state, yet no other set remains to us.
What now, then? We can't perform the rite without it.
Why not give it a try as is? Even without its sacred power, the frock is deliciously holy.
Stop talking, Ring-a-Bell.
If this garb is destroyed, can we make a new one?
A set of holy vestments used in some miraculous ritual? Sure it is. Let me ask my tailor.
No, he's right. That's it. We must speak with the old sage of the Yuliana Woods. He has seen to the creation of the Vestal's garbs and other ceremonial tools for generations. There's no finer craftsman. I met him only once, as a small child together with the Mother Vestal. More than a decade has passed. I cannot say whether he is still there, or even alive, but
if he can make us a new set of vestments, why are we still standing around talking? I've never heard of these woods. Where are they? How will we get there?
I recall the forest being uncommonly dense. Also, there was a lake.
If it's large enough to float a ship, I'll land us there. Now, what of the ladies of Yuliana? Are there many ladies?
Ignore him. Can we be certain this lake hasn't rotted through like the oceans? That's not how I fancy ending my life.
Well, what does Ring-a-Bell's journal have to say on the matter?
Let's have a look. Ah, here we are. Yuliana, yes. The hidden heart of an ancient wood, northeast of Ansheim.
Given the book's owner, I half expected some note about the lack of women there.
Women or no, that's our next destination.
Indeed, but since we're going, let's hope for ladies.